I think it's cool too.
Yeah. Doggone right, man.
What do you have to say? Yes. Members League of Punko, are you with us? No, you're not. Then we are taking you off.
I said the cameras are out in bulk tonight.
Yeah. Taxation.
All right, we're going to call to order the regularly scheduled school board meeting of Tuesday, December 17th, 2013 at Historic Old Central High School. The time is approximately 6:30. Member Murneke, please lead us in roll.
Member Cameron.
Here.
Member Johnston. Member Casper.
Here.
I'm here. Member Saliga-Punko.
Here.
Member Watson.
Here.
Member Westholm.
Here.
Superintendent Gronseth.
Here.
Deputy Clerk Bill Hansen. Here. Secretary Melinda Thibault. Here. Student Representatives Caitlin Persh.
Here.
And Eric Thibault.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you for your precise leading of roll call there, Member Murneke. Please, folks in the audience as well as on the board, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, board members, could I get a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Made by Member Westholm and a second, seconded by Member Saliga-Punko. Any comments regarding that? Seeing none, let's move to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries 7-0. All right, board members, we are now moving on to reading and approving of minutes. We have the minutes for our special school board meeting of November 19th, 2013. Could I get a motion to accept? By Member Wasson, a second.
Second.
By Member Westholm. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's move to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries 7-0. On to our regularly scheduled school board meeting minutes of November 19th, 2013. Could I get a motion? By Member Wasson, a second.
Second.
By Member Westholm. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's move to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries 7-0. All right, board members, we are now on to our school and community recognition part of our agenda. So, Assistant Superintendent, are you handling this? Okay. Do we have members of the, Tanya is here representing the Denfeld Jazz. All right, board members, let's all step down to the front during this recognition.
Members of the board, this month I'm pleased to present the Denfeld Jazz Band for recognition. Principal Tanya Ascanios is here to accept the award on behalf of this talented group. The Denfeld High School Jazz Band is featured on a new CD, Minnesota Beatle Project Volume 5, which was released this month. The compilation features several well-known and award-winning Minnesota-born or based musicians performing originally arranged composition of their favorite Beatle songs. Our students are in good company as the CD includes performances by Actual Wolf, Gary Berger, Gray Coates, the Cactus Blossoms, and more. Recording purchased directly from Denfeld High School earned $5 each to support the Denfeld Jazz Band. Vega Production launched the Minnesota Beatle Project in 2009, and 100% of the net proceeds are used to rebuild and enhance music and art education for children in Minnesota public schools. Congratulations, Tanya, and congratulations to your Denfeld Jazz Band.
Thank you. Superintendent, school board members, I would like to say thank you for this recognition. Our jazz band would be here, but they're performing at Scholastica tonight, so we're not able to be here, so they sent me. And I would like to present to you all a CD, the Minnesota Project, that has our cut on it. Please enjoy. It's for your enjoyment, and we are very honored for you all to recognize us. We had a wonderful time. We had 20 students who went down to McNally Smith College to record, and our band director also, Mike Romehilt. So thank you very much for your recognition.
Yeah. Bill? 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 Yes. Yes. Board members, you may want to stay down here. There are chairs here for your use.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is the taxation hearing, the public hearing on our recommended tax levy. All right, thank you very much. This is the public hearing for taxes payable in calendar year 2014, and with that we'll go to the first slide, Melinda. I put this slide in to emphasize the point that public schools have been established through the Minnesota Constitution. You can see in the center of the chart there, it is the duty of the legislature to establish a general and uniform system of public schools. The legislature shall make provisions by taxation or otherwise as will secure a thorough and efficient system of public schools throughout the state. This is one of the steps involved in setting our tax levy for 2014. We actually start the process back in the summer when we start to input various pieces of data to the Department of Education levy system. In mid-September, the Department of Education then published the version of our first draft of our levy limit worksheets, setting the maximum authorized levy on September 17th. As a reminder, board, the board did approve the proposed levy amounts at that time. In mid-November, the county mailed proposed property tax statements to all property tax owners, or property owners rather. And tonight we have the public hearing on the proposed levy at our regular meeting tonight. And as part of our agenda tonight, and subsequent to this hearing, the school board will vote on setting a final levy limit. One of the charts that's we present is to give some financial background, and this is a combination of both the year that we've just completed in fiscal year 13 as well as the budget information for fiscal year 14. You can see that the funds are presented down the left-hand side. The first column is the beginning fund balance for all of the funds at the beginning of fiscal year 13. And you can see the total there was $55 million. And you can see the totals by fund. The largest piece, of course, was the building construction fund, as we still had projects active at that point in time, beginning on July 1st, 2012. The actual revenues and any transfers in are in this column, a total of about $131 million, $99 million in the general fund. You can see the other numbers there. The building construction fund, I'm going to mention that again, $2.1 million in revenues, largely from interest earnings on the monies that were invested until they were needed. The next column is the total, again, by fund, total expenditures and transfers out, a total of $166 million. The building construction fund, $33 million as noted here, $100 million, just about $101 million on the general fund. And then the fund balance at the end of June 30th, 2013, total of $20 million, $1.9 million in the general fund. You can see the other fund balances, the largest being in building construction. We had increasing fund balances in food service, community service. The building construction will continue to work its way down as projects are completed. And then you can see the balances for debt service, trust. And the internal service fund is is an internal accounting mechanism to account for our dental premiums that are self-funded within the district. Budgeted revenues and transfers in for 2013-14. These numbers have been are as current as we can make them and are consistent with the rest of the recommended levy presentation. $127 million in revenues. Budgeted expenditures and transfers out, $133 million, leaving a fund balance at the end of, projected fund balance at the end of 2014 at $14,271,000. You'll note up here for the general fund, the fund balance does increase to nearly $6.5 million. Again, that is based on the recommended levy that you have in front of you tonight. That then does not require the transfer that we have made in the past, and that's what provides then for the increasing fund balance that you see there. And finally, on the building construction, number goes down again as any interest that we earn on the account is offset by the, more than offset by the cost of the building projects. That will include largely the Myers, Wilkins, and Congdon projects that happened during July and August of this fiscal year 14. Oh, yes. Thank you, Melinda. We have an incorrect date up there. That should be 2014, June 30th of 2014. This is a three-dimensional pie chart that shows the revenues for all of the various funds that the district has. Just want to, I think it does a good job of showing the significance of our general fund at almost over 76% of all of the funds that we have. Our debt redemption fund brings in 14%, community service 4.7%, food service at just under 3%, and then building construction and internal service and trust all at less than 1%. But again, this gives you a feeling for how significant the general fund is revenue-wise compared to all of the funds that we have. This chart shows the operating fund expenditures or general fund expenditures by program. The largest piece, of course, would be regular instruction, just about 40%. Special education at 22%. Site building costs at 13.3%. Transportation at just under 7%. Instructional and pupil services at 5.9%. District and school administration at 4.5%. And district support services at 3.4%. And fixed costs 3.3%, and vocational instruction at 1.2%. Fixed costs is where we book some of our insurance and benefit numbers that are then later allocated. This is this chart summarizes the levy numbers for the 2013 levy is in this first column. general fund levy of $11.2 million, community service levy of $1.1 million, debt redemption fund of $16.6 million, with the total levy being $28.9 million in calendar year 2013. The levy limitation number and the recommended levy, same numbers. You can see there are decreases in both the general fund and community service of nearly $400,000, a little over $400,000 actually. The recommended levy change is for the general fund is minus $344,000 to $10.9 million, and for the community service fund, $71,000 less at $1,029,000. Debt redemption fund is where we see the significant increase from 16.6 to 20.4, an increase of 3.9 million, and the proposed levy at the bottom, 32,363,000. As we previously discussed, the lack of property sales that we've been being able to fund from our general fund reserves, we're no longer able to do that, and so this represents a debt redemption levy increase to cover the lack of property sales until they sell, and then we can at least have discussions at that point about how to handle that. Total increase, or the recommended percentage changes here, 3% reduction in general fund, 6.5% for community service fund, 23% increase in the debt redemption fund, and 11.9% as a total increase on the total levy. This chart shows a history of the levy going back to 1997, the calendar year 1997, and just shows you a trend over time. I've shown this in past years. The big reduction here in 2002 was during the Ventura administration, when part of his point was to make sure that the state took on their obligation of providing a fair and equal education across the state, and so they took most of the responsibility back there, and in the form of aid. And since then, you've pretty consistent levy increases as the aid numbers have been reduced, and most of the impact has been put back onto local property taxes in some way, shape, or form, and again, leading up to this Pay 14 year on the right. Summarize the most notable increase numbers within the levy. Again, as I previously mentioned, the largest single increase is in debt service related to the allowance for property sales that we formerly made, is no longer in place at 3.8 million, an impact of $3.8 million. This is the referendum increase that was voted on in November, just under $1.9 million in terms of additional revenues there. And then student achievement, which is a new levy that was passed through the legislature this last session, $235,000. I want to mention that that's offset by some other levy changes I'll mention on the next slide. The major reductions to the levy that we've seen, first, in terms of reemployment or unemployment insurance, $942,000 of a reduction. That's just based on favorable results that we've seen from an unemployment standpoint. The OPEB number of OPEB, again, is other post-employment benefits. It's a reduction of $914,000. That is based on a new actuarial valuation that we had done for the district, and that created a more positive outlook for where the other post-employment benefits accounts are. Operating capital was the account that I wanted to mention. Offsetting the student achievement increase in a levy was the reduction that the legislature made in the amount of the levy for operating capital affecting districts. And what's happened is our operating capital revenues will stay essentially the same, but this shift is now going to come from an aid component and is no longer part of the property tax levy. And then achievement and integration, a reduction of $114,000. Again, this was through legislative action from this past session with some changes to integration monies at that point in time, and that's the impact for our district there. Information provided by the county auditor's office would indicate that for a $150,000 home, the impact of the total levy is $61.55 a year or $5.13 a month. For comparison purposes, the estimate that we made relative to question 2 on the referendum from November was $45.36 a year or $3.78 a month, so you can see the difference between that estimate and the impact of this total levy. The first estimate was only for that one single item. In summary, our recommended levy increase is $3,438,159, or 11.89%. Nearly $3.9 million is for debt service, and as part of this proposed levy to compensate for the lack of property sales that we have seen, and with the idea, as we've again have previously discussed, board members, to recognize those any benefit from those sales as they occur. And finally, an increase of nearly $1.9 million of the general fund as part of the levy following the voter referendum approval this past November. And with that, it's the end of the presentation, and people will have a chance to comment during our public comment period. Thank you.
All right, board members, we are back on our agenda. Thank you, Mr. Hansen, for your in-depth presentation and informative presentation. I know I found it enlightening, and hopefully other board members and folks in the audience did as well. We are now moving on to audience participation. This is an opportunity for community members to address the board regarding an issue pertaining to the board. We'll remind each of our speakers that we do have a code of conduct, and we do have that posted in the corners of the room for folks if they're concerned about that code of conduct. Member Murneke is our official timekeeper. He has a timer in front of him. It will start out green. As it approaches the 3 minutes, it will turn to yellow and then to red. That's an indication to you as a speaker that you need to wrap up. I generally will give you a little bit of additional time to address the board if you'd like to as part of that, but we'll ask you to start wrapping up within that time frame. So with that, we are going to start bringing our speakers forward. Our first speaker is member-elect Rosie Leffler-Kemp. Welcome, Rosie.
Thank you.
Nice to see you again today.
Thank you, and thank you, Bill, again. I've always enjoyed over the years coming to the Truth in Taxation hearing, and always learn a lot. I'm actually not here to address that, though. I just wanted to take a moment to thank our 3 outgoing school board members. The past 20 years I've lived in Duluth. These 3 members have served over 30 years together, or 30 years collectively on our school board. And I just wanted to say a couple things. I both appreciate the years of service Mary Cameron and Wasson and Tom Casper have given to our schools and our community. I've appreciated, as an active community member, the many events and boards that you've served on in the community for us. And just as a parent with 4 children, I've appreciated the excellent education my 4 children have and currently are getting under your watch. So I thank you. The last few weeks, there's been a lot of quotes in the news honoring and recognizing Nelson Mandela's leadership. And one that popped in front of my Facebook page that I think speaks to your leadership is a good head and a good heart are always a formidable combination. And I just want to say, Ann and Mary and Tom, thank you again for over the years using both your head and your heart to make the decisions that you've made impacting my children and our children in our school district. You have made a difference and you have made a lasting impact in our school and our community. So thank you.
Thank you, Rosie. Moving on, John Stromgren, followed by Annie Harla. Welcome, John.
Thank you. Superintendent, Chairman, school board members, Mr. Hanson, and citizens of ISD 709. My name is John Stromgren. I live at 6179 Lakewood Road. The tax market value of my house is $139,000, which is the same as it was last year. I would like someone to explain why non-voter approved levy going from $33 per month to $40 per month, that's an increase of 17%. How can you justify putting that kind of burden on our retired citizens of this community? And now we don't even know what our new voter-approved levy will be this coming year. What happens when the money runs out from us citizens? Mayor Ness wonders why he can't increase the population of Duluth to 90,000 people. Why should people of Duluth stick around when they can move to a warmer climate and pay less taxes? I just got the new amount that my Social Security will increase by for 2014, which is $19. That is only 1.5% increase. It will not even cover school tax increases. Please oppose any new levies in the future. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, John. Moving on, Annie Harla, followed by Marcia Stromgren. Welcome, Member-elect Harla.
Well, good evening. I also wanted to echo Rosie and just thanking very much Member Wasson, Member Casper, and Member Cameron for your years of service in our district. I look forward to hopefully learning a lot from you throughout the years as I have an opportunity to serve, but then as well just want to thank you for just your dedication and service to our district. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Annie. Moving on, Marcia Stromgren, followed by Lauren Martell. Reminding any folks in the audience, if they would like to address the board, they can still sign up over to the right, and we will allow them to speak to us. So, welcome, Marcy.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom, for showing a last year of civility and a well-run board. I appreciate how you've conducted your meetings in the last year. I've been here watching things since 2008. And I think you're probably the most fair-handed chairman of the board I've seen thus far. Having said that, what legacy are you leaving us, Mary Cameron and Ann Wasson? As you leave this board, you have left this town with major costs for fancy buildings. I have in my hands a letter from Lakeview Christian Academy, a building that was deemed no longer suitable to educate children in, and yet their test scores far supersede what I see written in the paper in the August 27th, 2013 Duluth News Tribune article. As a business owner, I give my customers the best possible service for their money. I will be raising my rates because I can't afford to not do it. Although I heard our superintendent say, well, people that rent don't have to worry about these increased taxes because they don't own the property. Well, my goodness, where does the business owner get his money from? He has to raise the rent. So it will affect anybody and everybody that's in our community. And when you look at the number of people that are below poverty level, what about them? I'm very discouraged, and I am sickened by the fact that these test scores do not reflect these fancy new buildings. When are we going to start seeing them come up? North Star Academy outshines you, and yeah, they've got a brand new building, but it is very basic. There's no fanciness to that building, and yet the test scores are far better than what you're offering. I suggest you try and do a lot better job in the future so that those of us that have to pay the bill feel that we're getting our money's worth. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcy. Our last speaker is Lauren Martell. Welcome, Lauren.
Thank you, Chair Casper, and I agree with Marcia that you've run these meetings more fair than anybody else I've seen. But you'll have to decide for yourself, sir, if you think the people who voted for you or campaigned for your election as I did should believe they have been well represented. One of the others leaving after tonight once accused perfectly composed citizens at this podium of incivility. She apparently did a thesis on No Child Left Behind. I only wish she had actually spent some time gaining expertise on this $500 million boondoggle she's been rubber stamping. I don't think she could explain the difference between a lease levy and lease purchase COP if her life depended on it. But it's the one who signed the original contract that I want to focus the rest of my comments on. First, at the base of her actions, I am certain there were good intentions, but everything she's done has been wrong. She forced a corporate scam down the public's throats that was a terrible fit for Duluth. She once said one of the most outlandish things I've ever heard from a government official, that all you had to do was get all your experts together and have the MDE approve their plan, and there's your audit. According to her, the red plan was pre-audited. Who ever heard of anything so absurd? If this board was the board of directors of a corporation, it would have already been sued by its investors. Who would sign contracts taking $122 million of claimed savings at face value? What a complete failure to protect the public's interest. The public will have no choice but to keep shoring up this voodoo financing for years, starting with another big tax hike tonight. But it's not just the plan. The process was also bad. She had no problem with one of her allies effectively lying to the whole central part of this city, making a mockery of representative government. That individual's actions will forever epitomize the legacy of the board she was part of. A legacy of broken promises, duplicity, and betrayal. You've demonstrated time and again, madam, that you don't care what others think, but I'm going to tell you anyway. There are many people in this town who will never forget what you did, and many who will never forgive the arrogant, undemocratic way you did it. Thank you.
like to thank the audience that participated this evening, and the last two speakers recognized me as somebody who's run a meeting more fairly, and I gave maybe a little more latitude than I should have with some of those directed comments that bordered on inappropriate, and I apologize to Board Member Wasson and Board Member Cameron for that. All right, and I'm sorry that happened. All right, we're going to move on to the report of the superintendent. Welcome, Mr. Gronseth.
Reading of communications we have.
I'm sorry, reading of communications and petitions first, and we do not have any.
Sorry about that.
So we are now moving on to the report of the superintendent. Welcome, Superintendent Gronseth.
Thank you, and actually I'm going to invite the board to come down to the floor one more time tonight. I want to see a high 86. Thank you. Well, I'm going to start with student representatives Eric Thibault and Caitlin Persh. I have to say that it has been a pleasure to have both of you on the board, and you have done an excellent job this past year. It is so important for us to include student voices in all of these discussions that impact all of the students in our district, and not just the students, but our staff and our whole community, and I have no doubt that both of you are going to become very strong leaders in our community, and I've heard Superintendent Thibault mentioned a few times over the last year, so thank you very much for your service to your schools and to your student bodies and to the community, and we have a certificate and a small gift for you. We also have 3 outgoing board members, as several people have mentioned this evening, and I just wanted to take a moment to recognize their service. And I'll start with Member Casper, who has been on the board for 4 years and has consistently worked to create a positive learning environment in our schools and has held the students at the center of that conversation. He's also worked a lot to enrich the cooperation between the school district and many community organizations, and his work on the community and school gardens has literally changed the landscape of our schools, so I thank you for that service. Member Ann Wasson, I've known for quite a long time, and Ann has served on the board for 10 years, and she has remained a steady rock through what has arguably been the most exciting, but also the most tumultuous years in our history. And through it all, she has remained dedicated and focused on our students and our staff and the families of Duluth, improving student achievement and the overall learning experience of our students. She's also been a key player in developing our Labor Management Relations Committee, which she has served on since its inception, and I know that she holds that dear as a particularly important piece in our district because it has changed how the adults function in our school district. And Ann, I thank you for your service and your support. And finally, last but definitely not least, the woman who started as Ms. Mary Cameron and ends her time as Dr. Mary Cameron. Mary, too, yes. Mary, too, has been deeply involved during her time on the school board, and she has brought an important understanding of HR, of systems, and of systems thinking to our discussions, both behind closed doors and during our school board meetings, and that is deeply important to our work. Her research and her dissertation on critical race theory has helped to shape how the district has begun our work on closing the achievement gap and raising graduation rates. And she has been a strong advocate for students and families who are far too often underrepresented. And I thank you for your work and your support. You have all served the district very well over the time, and your efforts have improved student achievement, have improved our culture and the effectiveness and efficiency of our school district, and we thank you for your service. You will be deeply missed. But once a board member, always a board member. Thank you. And I believe there are some other board members who would like to, as part of the superintendent's report, make a few comments. So I will let them do so.
And I guess I'll do that then. All right, Member Sligapunko. Welcome. We're glad you made it here.
Thank you. Well, I want to reiterate a few comments that were made because we are losing 3 very dedicated, very important members of this board. They have been just exceptional all the whole time that I've been part of this board. And I do want to say, Member Casper, it was very fun to get to know you. The 4 years that you've been on the board, you did a great job with everything being chair and just working together on committees, and it was great. And Member Cameron, it was great. I mean, I remember when I was PTA president and talking to you about many different items, and I just really appreciate your service. And you and Member Wasson and me and Member Nilsson, I'll never forget when Robert Mars wrote an article and talked about the 4 strong women, because we were. So I appreciate all that you've done in these years, because it was great and we were strong. And Member Wasson, I have to say, I'm really going to miss you tremendously. We've been through a lot together, and just it was great sharing ideas. We were both PTA members together, worked together a lot before even being on the board, but it's been an honor working with you, and I'm really going to miss you. So thank you so much, all 3 of you, because it's been incredible, I think, what we've done with this district. And I just appreciate, we hear that we've hurt the city, but you know what? We have really helped the city with whether it's, having nice schools which attract professionals. We have our whole medical community is enhanced by this, our real estate community, our business community. So this has been great for Duluth and the future of Duluth as the mayor is working towards raising the population. This is definitely something that we did to make it stronger, and I appreciate all 3 of you. Thank you.
Thank you for your kind words, Member Sligapunko. Member Murneke.
When I decided to run for this position 2 years ago, I have a great old neighbor. I love him dearly. And I told him I was going to run for office. And he said, tell you what, just go in my garage, grab that big hammer and smash your hand as hard as you can. It'll be as much fun. And every once in a while when he sees me in a suit leaving, he'll say, my garage is open. But you do suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. You do get people who make fairly negative comments at you, and it's offset by the number of times I've had people come up and thank me. And I know you 3 have all received the same. Just this morning I was at a meeting, And a person I didn't know came up and said, "You're on the school board, right?" And I thought, "Oh, God, here it comes." And I just want to thank you for all you've done. And there are a lot of people out there who feel this way. I think we have wonderful schools, and we owe it to you. I think we have wonderful students who are getting a good education. We owe it to you. So Mary and Tom and Ann, from all the other people that are out there that come up and say, "Thanks for all you've done," add me to that list.
Thank you, Member Murneke. Member Westholm.
Thank you. I, too, would like to congratulate our three outgoing people, Mr. Casper and Mary and Ann. And as I had 30-plus years in the school district, and so there wasn't much I didn't experience in that 30 years. But yet getting on the board and listening to these three people with their experiences really helped me, I believe, function as a decent board member. So you can't help but, and I'm not trying to age anybody, but I believe your total amount of services, was it 32 years or something between the three of you? 30 years? Yeah, a lot of years. But time well spent as far as I'm concerned. I know one of the big things we've faced in this district for years has been the building issue. When I was the director of school ops down here, I made it one of my main duties to go out and visit every school in the district that was still open. And I was somewhat appalled at what I saw. They had been properly maintained, but our buildings were just in dire need of either replacement or vast improvements. So this whole building improvement thing, it was absolutely necessary, and it got done. And today I was at the holiday celebration at Piedmont, and again, that's one of the schools that was remodeled. And I remember when my kids went through Piedmont, what an awful building that was. I mean, they got a good education, but it was bad. And now it's a beautiful, functional building, and a lot of our buildings now are far more functional than they used to be. And does it cost money? Of course it does. But anyway, I just want to congratulate the three members that will be outgoing, and I've learned from all of you, and I appreciate that and your perspective and the years you put on the school board. So I thank you a lot for your service.
Thank you, Member Westholm. Member Johnston.
Sure, I'd like to also thank Chairman Casper. We came in together 4 years ago, had some fun times campaigning together, and spent some good times going to St. Cloud and other places, and appreciate keeping that communication open during some difficult times. So thank you, Chairman Casper. And of course, Member Cameron, we've had many conversations on the phone, one of my mentors on the board. And, well, I hope you don't mind me saying that. It was a lot, appreciate a lot of advice from you, and thank you.
Thank you, Member Johnston. Seeing no further lights, I was waiting for you, Member Wasson. Hello.
This isn't my final farewell yet. I just want to thank the student representatives. You have been actively involved and have done great things for your schools and for our district. And it does take time and it does take energy, but you really have been great. And so I want to say thank you very much.
Thank you, Member Wasson. And I'm going to address the board later as well, but I also want to thank our student representatives. Student Representative Thibault generally is the best dressed person up here. Today he's not, but generally he is. But most of the time he is. And Caitlin, last week coming to a meeting in the terrible cold and out in the ice to get to our meeting, that so impressed me that both of these kids have put in so much effort to try to be part of this and try to offer a student's perspective as we make decisions as a board. That certainly were heard by this board and heard by the community as part of their effort. So I want to thank the two of you as well, and I'll address the rest of the board later. So, all right, any other comments regarding the expanded report from the superintendent? All right, seeing none, we're going to move on to board members. You do have your schedule of meeting and events Coming up, we are now moving on to report of standing committees. Our Education Committee report. Member Cameron.
This is the Education Committee report for Tuesday, December 17th. Item 1, information items, Unity and ALC. Unity ALC staff and students will present a snapshot of the technology being utilized by students and staff and share an update on the status and progress of their new blended programs. It's recommended that the Duluth School Board receive this as informational. It's tabled, right. Item B, grant applications, there are none. 2, action items, presentation items requiring approval, there are none. Resolution E 12-13-3146, acceptance of grant award to Duluth Public Schools. I'm going to go ahead and read that and move it, if I may. Whereas Minnesota Statute 465.03 requires the school district to accept grants by resolution expressed to the terms prescribed by the donor in full, and whereas acceptance of the grant in accordance with the donor's terms is in the best interest of the Duluth Public Schools. Northland Foundation, Ed Crawford, was the author of this grant. The project title is Youth Success Team Grant. It's in the amount of $30,000. The funds from this grant award will be used to support funding AmeriCorps volunteers in the Duluth Public Schools as part of our youth success teams. I move Resolution E 12-13-3146, dated December 17, 2013.
Could I get a second? Seconded by Member Wasson. Any discussion regarding Resolution E-12-13-3146? Seeing none, let's move to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries 7-0. Back to you, Member Cameron.
And C, Policy 1140, Tobacco-Free School Districts. You have attached revisions to Policy 1140, Tobacco-Free School Districts for the second reading. Assistant Superintendent Ed Crawford was available to answer any questions at the meetings. It's recommended the School Board accept and approve the second reading of Policy 1140. And D, ISD 7 on calendar for 2014-15 school year. Assistant Superintendent Ed Crawford presented the recommended ISD 709 calendar for 2014-15 school year for review and approval, which was presented and approved by the Quality Leadership Team at their November 14, 2013 meeting. It's recommended that the Duluth School Board accept and approve the recommended ISD 709 calendar. And then diploma requests, the following students have completed all high school graduation requirements: Alyssa Cheatham, Tiffany Smith, Heather Bootkin, Paul Platt, and Christopher Lynn. I hope I pronounced their names correctly. And it's recommended that the Duluth School Board accept and approve the above requested diploma awards. And Chair Casper, I move the remaining Education Committee report.
Could I get a second? Seconded by Member Wasson. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's move to a vote. All those in favor of approval of the Education Committee report signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries 7-0. Member Westholm, the Human Resources report.
Yes, we have several staffing report action items. There's one other action item, and that's approval of a new position. That's a Head Start dietitian, nutritionist, and that would be a district-wide position. Do I need a separate vote on that? Do we need to pull that or not?
Yes.
Yes, we do? Okay. Let me go to the informational items and turn the page, if I can find the first page. We have 5 certified appointments, 1 certified co-curricular appointment, 2 certified leaves, 1 certified resignation, 3 certified retirements, 1 certified suspension, 1 certified temporary increase, 10 non-certified appointments, 1 non-certified demotion, and 7 non-certified leaves, 2 non-certified long-term substitutes, 6 non-certified permanent decreases, 1 non-certified permanent increase, 1 non-certified promotion, 4 non-certified resignations, 1 non-certified termination, and 4 non-certified temporary increases. And that completes what's on the HR report, and I suppose we should go to the...
Why don't we approve those
okay.
first, and then we'll move to the the approval of the new positions.
So I move that part of the report.
Okay, could I get a second? Seconded by Member Wasson. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's move to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries 7-0. Back to you, Member Westholm.
And the last item, of course, is the nutrition dietitian Head Start position. And that, I would guess, and not knowing a lot about it, but reading through it, I know they have a need for that, and I'm presuming, I don't know if anybody in the audience has comment on that. Do you Mr. Swirsky.
It's a position that was, it had been consolidated before, and with a recent retirement, we've separated those responsibilities and created this position. It's required by the state for the Head Start program, and it is funded with the Head Start funding. It is not out of our general funding.
All right, thank you.
Any other comments?
No.
Okay. I move the rest of the HR report for this month, and
we're going to move that position.
Move that position first.
Yeah, and could I get a second on that? Seconded by Member Wasson. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's move to a vote on the approval of the new Head Start dietitian position. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries 7-0.
Okay, now I will move the entire HR report for this month. So.
And could I get a second? Second by Member Wasson. Any discussion regarding the remainder of the Human Resources report? Seeing none, let's move to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries 7-0. Member Sligapunko, business report. Oh, there we go.
Okay, thank you. This is the Business Committee report for Tuesday, December 17th, 2013. We have the financial report, and we all saw that, but you all received a separate report. The usual reports in there. There are no bids, RFPs, or quotes, or policies, or regulations. Number 4, contracts, change orders, and leases. There's a contract. First one is Permar Security Services Agreement for Buildings with Permar-owned equipment. This agreement will cover a period from January 1st, 2014 through December 31st, 2014, with the option to extend 2 additional years. The estimated annual value of these services is $32,076.48. And it's recommended that the school board approve entering into an agreement with Permar Security Company to lease security equipment to the district and to provide 24-hour monitoring and keyed guard response building inspection services. It's further recommended that the Duluth School Board approve the 2 additional contract extension options through December 31st, 2016 if the quoted cost for the additional years is determined acceptable by the Director of Business Services and the Property and Risk Manager. And the Director of Business Services is also specifically authorized to approve expansion of services or building equipment leased during this period in amount not exceeding specific limits authorized by Resolution B1-13-3064 or that resolution's renewal equivalent approved for subsequent years. That is a mouthful. Number 2, Permar Security Services Agreement for Buildings with District-Owned Equipment. And this agreement will cover a period from January 1st, 2014 through December 31st, 2014 with the option to extend 2 additional years, and the estimated annual value of these services is $21,528. And that's the same thing that I read up above. And then B is change orders for Myers-Wilkins. There's a deduction on there, which is really nice. It's recommended that the school board approve the change orders as listed above at Myers-Wilkins, reflecting a total decrease of $46,036. And let's see, I think maybe I'll go right to the resolutions. Is that, you want me to do that, or do you want me to?
Member Hanson, or
yes, Mr. Hanson.
Deputy Clerk Hanson. Mr. Hanson, we spoke about this. Do we want to separate these now, or should we take the entirety of the, oh, shut off your light there. Here we go. Do these now, or should we go through the business report and then come back to these resolutions?
I don't know, maybe since you're already proceeding through the business report, why don't you finish that, and then we'll come back to the resolutions?
Sounds good, and then we can just
Okay.
deal with those separately.
Okay, so I'll skip the resolutions right now and just go back. So I was at number 4, and I'm going to just skip over to number 6, and that was informational. And these items are provided for informational purposes only. No action is required. And it's just the usual reports: expenditure, revenue, other contracts, facilities management report, the long-range facilities plan report, change orders, and future items. Number 7 is develop and finalize the budget considerations for fiscal year 15, and then B is the legislative platform. So I will move the entire business report except for the resolutions.
Sound good? Could I get a second?
Second.
Seconded by Member Wasson. Board members, anything you'd like to pull out for discussion? Member Johnston.
1A.
Okay.
And 4A. For a vote.
Okay.
Separate vote for 4A.
Separate vote for 4A. All right. Any other board members? Member Westholm.
This is just for some factual information. I want to pull out 1F, 1B, 1F.
1F.
Bottom projections. I just have a couple of questions
Okay.
about that. So.
All right. Anything else, board members? All right. Member Johnson, word to you with the financial report.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple questions, a couple minor comments, maybe hopefully some more discussion comments. One thing I noticed, and I just got this, didn't get it till the business committee, so I didn't have as many questions as I probably should have at the time, so I apologize, but got a few more since then. One thing I noticed that this is signed by nobody, and there isn't even any names on the letterhead of the company. We have a new company. The last letterheads, at least they had all CPAs on the letterhead, and this is probably a minor thing, but yet I think it's kind of important for an important document to at least to have a signature, at least to have some of the CPAs of the company and who that was. There's a signature of the company, but that's not a signature of any of the auditors, nor any of the names of any of the auditors in the company listed. So, again, I would like to certainly have some, would at least suggest that something be part of the record to indicate who those people are.
Hold on, Member Johnson. Mr. Hanson has a response to that.
In the preliminary copies that you got at the committee meeting, I'm not sure if, I don't have that with me, but I don't know if that had that in there or not, but in the final package of reports that you got prior to this meeting, the audit firm is, the letterhead is, it's on their letterhead, and it is signed the way a normal audit report would be signed, with the firm's name and the date and the location on the third page of the report. So if you have any questions about that afterwards, Member Johnston, I'd be glad to answer them for you.
I do think that the letterhead should at least have on some of at least the principles of the firm, at least. All letterheads do, and so I think that in the future we should certainly demand know who at least the principles of the firms are. Another question I had was on page 47, capital assets. This indicates, and I don't know if I'm reading this correct or not, but this is why I'm bringing it up. This is the capital assets, and anyway, it's talking about closure of the Central High School Secondary Technical Campus, Morgan Park, and Rock Ridge. It says the net value of these assets totals $6.5 million. That's certainly much less than we've been told. Are we missing something on that? Am I missing some other numbers, or that number was about? I thought it was about 15 million. So could somebody explain that?
Mr. LeBlanc.
The capital assets that's listed in that particular note is the book value of those assets. It is not the retail value of those assets.
Do you want to clarify the difference between the two?
It's the book value represents the total cost of the building less depreciation over a number of years. So this is the undepreciated value of those assets.
Okay, thank you. Does that answer your question, Member Johnson?
I think so. Has there been any change in the assessments of those? I believe we've had some closed meetings, which of course we can't talk about, but has there been any change in the assessment since the long-range facility plan?
I have not been involved in the assessed valuations of those assets. That I would defer to somebody else.
Mr. Hanson.
There have not been, we did valuations of all the properties as part of the long-range facilities plan, and we have not done any updated studies since then. And the valuations, as you'll remember from that time, were done both in use and not in use to extend basically or create two different valuations for each of our properties. But as I said before, those have not been redone since then.
All right, thank you. That's fine. Answer your question? Okay. Yes, thank you. Back to the financial report?
Sure.
Okay.
This is probably a minor thing, but I noticed there was nothing in the UFARS section, and I always like to have that. It's a way for me to double check what gets sent in, what the state gives us. So,
Mr. LeBlanc.
The reason that page is not there at the moment is that we have to resubmit our UFARS tape, and therefore we're not able to show a compliance check between our UFARS tape and the audited figures until we resubmit the tape. And we just got notice from MDE that we can resubmit our tape, so that will be happening shortly, and then there will be a compliance table.
okay, thanks. If I could get that to me, I would appreciate it.
I will
and I
do
assume
that
it'll be included in the copies on the web and that kind of stuff.
Thank you, Mr. LeBlanc. Back to you, Member Johnson.
Okay. This one's a little more of a complicated question, but maybe it's not complicated, but I had during the committee meeting requested that the balance sheet for the general fund be included. You did send that to me, thank you, by email. But I think it's important to have a sheet like this as part of the record, so why? This is the only way that we as board members and the public have a way to track what the unassigned fund balance is. And I've had a very difficult time. In fact, I don't think that number is even in here. That's a number which is required, of course, by our policy 3017, as well as something we have to track in compliance with state law and whatnot. And I think having that page in there is absolutely critical. So again, I'm requesting that that page again be included in there. And again, I can't find, there was a handout with some hand stuff given out at the committee meeting that indicated what that unassigned number was, but without that general fund balance there, I or nobody else has any way to know that, and I think it's important to have in there.
Mr. Hanson, Mr. Hanson, back to you.
I'm glad you did receive the two-year balance sheet comparison that you had requested, and we did distribute by email. From your question tonight, however, I'm getting that you're looking for the fund balance numbers, and those can be found on pages 23 and 24 of the, which is Exhibit 3 within the financial statements. And again, if you have any questions after you look at that, please let me know.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. Back to you, Member Johnson.
Sure, just looking up that. And okay, that is in there. What was hard is one of the things that when we asked about the unassigned fund balance of it should be there, a little bit easier to find. And it is on this page. And this is a real simple page to put in. Everything is there, comparison. So again, I'm certainly asking that this to be included. Extremely simple to do. It's one page. And I see absolutely no reason why this shouldn't be included, because this is where it's compared. We can go in, compare year after year after year after year. It was in there in all the previous audits that I've seen, that I've had. And again, just a very simple request, and I think it should be included. and I'm hoping that that can be done.
Superintendent.
I believe Mr. Hansen could give us quite a long explanation of how that report has changed because of, well, changes in the requirements of that report. And I'm not sure we have to go through all of it, but perhaps that specific page.
Mr. Hansen.
Basically, it's probably safe to say that nearly every year there are reporting requirement changes that we have to address, and there are constantly new reports coming into the package that we give you, and there are also reports that are no longer required, and the one that Member Johnston is citing is one of those. You know, while I appreciate the benefit that the report provides, as it gives a 2-year comparison, on the other hand, I would say that to maintain every report that has ever been part of this is not necessarily reasonable either. So we're certainly willing to take a look at things and provide them separately. I just don't know that that we should look to keep everything in the report, in perpetuity. So that's why it's not in here. Again, the request was made, and we presented it to each of the board members. That's why it's not in here. So.
Thank you, Mr. Hansen. Back to you, Member Johnson.
Sure. Again, it seems to me a balance sheet for a general fund is pretty basic for any kind of an audit, and I can't imagine why a balance sheet for our biggest fund would not be included. And again, I will request that again next year that it does. Another item that we were given at the committee, which was on the handwritten stuff on one of the handouts, which aren't in here, was again another computation of what they call the unrestricted fund balance, which is 1.1 million. That was a compilation of what was on page 23, the 2.9 negative million, and the severance insurance premium. And again, that 1.1 is, I believe, is not anywhere in this report, is it?
Back to you, Mr. Hansen.
Oh, yeah, that we did hand that out at the meeting, but we don't have that with us tonight.
As I understood, that is what complies with our policy 3017, and maybe I'm wrong, but the general unassigned one is what complies with the state, on the statutory debt. And both of those numbers should be very readily available for us board members as well as any public that wants to know how are we tracking on those type of issues.
We would generally look to publish a separate report to board members detailing the calculation as noted in the policy. There are only select expenditure items that are included as part of that calculation, and we would look to issue that here shortly so that all board members have an up-to-date estimate of what that is, where we are currently at, in addition to the discussion that we had at the committee meeting on that.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Hansen. Back to you, Member Johnson.
Sure. Thank you. Again, I think it'd be pretty easy to include those items. Again, just some comments on what the auditor found. She indicated that the unrestricted fund balance has fallen from about 8 million in 2010 to 1 million this year. General fund balance has fallen from 15 million in 2010 to 1 million this year. And to me, that is not a good sign of good financial management. Also, according to the auditor, the general fund balance has been caused largely by deficit spending. That's what we had that discussion on anyway. But yet, in the 4 years that we've been approving a budget, we've always had about a $5 million budget, and I've been understanding in all the years I've been on here that we always dealt with that deficit and decreased and balanced that budget by reducing teacher positions, cutting 7 to 6 hours, and all the stuff that we've done in the last 4 years. And we've always ended up with a balanced budget. So I don't understand that the auditor said that this dramatic reduction in our fund balances has been caused by deficit spending, but I thought we've always balanced our budget. So could somebody explain what the auditor meant? Apparently she doesn't seem to think that we have been balancing our budget. Obviously, if we've had, went from 15 and even 25, I think about 5 years ago, down to 1 this year. And that I don't understand that, and the audit doesn't explain that.
Mr. Hanson.
Statement A1 on page 62 is the document that was being discussed when those comments were made. There are 2 budget columns presented on that statement, the first being the original budget, or what is adopted in June. And you can see for last year that had a surplus of $680,000, and that's generally our preferred method of passing the budget, is to allow for a surplus budget, because one of the things that we know is that for some of the restricted programs that we have, if the monies don't all get spent in that particular year, we're going to carry those monies over because they are restricted in their use and must be used later for whether that be Title I programming or integration programming or whatever it is. As those numbers are carried forward and we receive any new grant money or new resources, or there are any other budget changes, we present those to you monthly on within the monthly report of financial reports that we provide to the board members. The final budget in this case had a deficit of $495,000 due to the carryover of some of those, or the carryover of the unspent funds from that year, or from the prior year rather. That's the number that we don't really know when we adopt the budget. And we know we need to have some extra money, if you will, in there for those items, but we don't have good visibility of what it is. Ultimately, so you look at this over the long term. The challenge certainly recently has been as you can see, the significance of the fund balance as a result of the property sale, both the transfers and the property sale numbers that are on there. And so the budget is not just a once-a-year thing, it's an ongoing thing through the year that is dealt with each month.
You're saying that property sales would go into the general fund if we sold them?
Mr. Hanson.
They go into, yes, they do. It's part of our internal Fund 5, which is all part of the general fund.
Property sales go to pay off our debts. I think you know that as well as I do.
Mr. Hanson.
They do, and we make that transfer on an annual basis, or we have in the past, back in December. So, and that's why we moved the money from the general fund to the debt service fund, is to recognize the anticipated or the actual or anticipated property sales and move those monies to the debt service fund to reduce the debt service levy.
So if we sell $50 million of the building, our general budget is going to go up by $50 million and we can hire lots of teachers? Is that what you're saying?
The money is going to go into the general fund, as I indicated, and then depending on any other issues that have to be taken care of, it may or may not be available, or it may or may not be restricted, depending on any state statute that may have an impact on any of those sales.
Well, our plan was that our building sales would go to pay off building debts. I think that's still the plan. I think you're incorrect on your insinuation that this goes to the general fund. Another topic. Again, this is just a question on the auditor. I didn't see in here that our policy 3017 was violated. She said that there. I looked through here. I couldn't find anything in her statement that 3017, we didn't comply with that. Again, is that somewhere in the audit? Anybody know? I couldn't find it.
Mr. Hanson.
It was in the, it's part of the, obviously it's part of the report that you received. That was the basis for the discussion at the committee meeting. I don't think it's performance to every policy that we have is not called out in here per se, but it's not in here.
I think it should be. It was last year, and we just found out about last year. It should be in there. Again, that's not your fault. It's the auditor's fault. Another thing that wasn't in there, I asked about the Moody's report and about our bond status and the negative outlook that Moody's had on us. They seemed to be surprised by everybody at the time, including the auditor, that that wasn't included in the report. Nobody could find it. I went through again and looked at it, and I couldn't find anything on that. Again, when there's such a quite obvious thing from an outside observer, a financial observer, that we're having financial problems, that seems like that should be part of an audit, at least it should be mentioned. And obviously is not. I think that's an oversight. It did mention in our audit that it does say that we will only invest in our investments in, I think, AA or AAA securities as rated by the state. This interesting observation that we would not be able to invest in any of our own securities because they wouldn't comply with high enough rating. And that should at least be in our audit. That's critical information. Also, the auditor asked her that she did not audit the Johnson Controls contract, nor any of the red plan spending, so none of that was audited. So just want to clarify that. Looking at what I think are defects of the plan that I brought up here, I don't think that we got a good audit as we should. Some very obvious things were missed. And I think that our auditor should at least put her name on it as a minimum. If she's going to give us something like this, we can at least say who did it.
Thank you, Member Johnson. Superintendent Gronseth.
I did want to clarify that she did say that contracts and expenditures were included in that audit. And I also want to point out that it is the same firm that has done our audit for a number of years. It was Eichel & Schilling in the past, was bought by Whipley, which is a much larger firm who do, hundreds if not thousands of school audits. They are very adept at all of the new regulations on how to do a school audit and are very well respected. I'm not sure what else to add to that other than an apology to the company for calling out their character.
Member Johnson.
An apology to the company? I happen to be a school board member. I'm asking for some basic financial information. And no apology is not in order. I'm asking for some basic stuff, like maybe put somebody's name on it. You're apologizing for that? I don't think so.
All right, moving on to 1F. Member Westholm. Oh, hold on a sec there.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah, it's page 21, the Wadham projections, that I have a few questions about. Maybe I'm not reading stuff right, but if I look down at the bottom where it says net, does that mean that it looks like for the first semester we were up 58 students more than we thought we were going to be, or am I reading that right or not? Maybe Member Hanson.
Mr. Hanson.
Yeah.
You are looking at that correctly, Member Westholm. what we try to do there is as you know, we do this projection every month based on historical trends that we've accumulated over a period of several years. And what we try to do there at the bottom of the report is to present a projected weighted average daily membership number and then refer to the budgeted weighted average daily membership number. And in this case, it is looking favorable at this point in time. I would caution the board that it's not, it's still early enough in the year that I wouldn't be comfortable with any planned spending changes or anything like this. This would just, should keep the budget that we have. The other number presented there is the reference to the prior year for your information. So that's the 9,814.
And I remember being former high school principal, and in the high schools, the enrollment tended to fluctuate more than the elementary schools. And so it was always waiting. You get that beginning of year enrollment, and you know you're going to lose kids, but you kind of have a guess as to how many you're going to lose. And of course, you have to adjust for staffing then. And are we going to cut 1.5 teaching staff? What are we going to do? Now we do this again at semester time, correct? When is our beginning? I should know this. What's the beginning of our new semester?
Superintendent?
Third week of January. I believe it's the 21st or 22nd.
Okay, so then I know we get almost daily enrollment at that point for a week or so, and then is it like a couple of weeks after that we make any adjustments, either reductions or adds to staffing?
We'll continue to track these numbers as we go along here, and certainly if there's if we sense any need to make some adjustments, we'll be moving in that direction and sharing that information with the board and getting your acknowledgement that, as to a direction that we should take.
And I was one of those high school principals that was a real pain to people down here, because I know we were down here always advocating, we need more, we got this many more kids, but I understand that it's, you never get a firm number, especially in the secondary schools. So thank you for your information, and you're working on this, and I hope the second semester, we had an increase the first semester. It'd be nice to have another one second semester.
Thank you, Member Westholm. Member Johnson, you wanted a separate vote on 4A1, correct? Let's do that now, board members, and then we will approve the remainder of the business committee report, excluding the two resolutions. So,
This is 4A.
For 4A. For the premier. Okay. So both 1 and 2. Could we get all those in favor of 4A1 signify by saying yes? Yes. Yes, aye. Any opposed? No, nay. All right, that carries 7-0. All right, board members, we have a motion and a second for the remainder of the business committee report, excluding the two resolutions, and no further lights regarding the business. Member Johnston, you got that in there by that much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, again, I'll be voting no on this again. Again, the audit, I don't think the audit was done well, and no, they don't need to be. You don't have to apologize to them on my behavior. No, it's a bad audit.
All right, thank you for your opinion. Moving on, board members, let's vote on the remainder of the business committee report. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That carries 6-1. Member Sliga-Punko, back to you and resolutions, and maybe we should have Mr. Hansen clarify these two resolutions, if that's okay with you, Member Sliga-Punko. All right, Mr. Hansen, you're up again.
All right. Board members, I'll be referring to resolutions 5A and 5B. Item 5A is the placeholder resolution that we have in place for any transfer of funds from the general fund to the debt service fund. As noted in the recommendation, this resolution will not be necessary if resolution 5B is approved as we've submitted it to you. And resolution 5B is the resolution for the certified tax levy with the recommended amounts that we previously presented. So I just wanted to, if anybody should be aware, board members should be aware that if there's any proposed change to the debt service levy as we've presented it, then you would also want to propose a change to Resolution 5A, which as it exists right now, you do not need to act on at this point. So
Member Slick-Punko, let's go to you next.
I guess I'll just start out with reading Resolution 5B.
Well, let's, if board members have questions, Member Slick-Punko, if board members have specific questions regarding 5A or 5B, maybe we can address those prior to bringing them forward, so we can maybe make any clarifications that need to be done first. As a clarification, Mr. Hanson, so if we vote down 5A as a resolution, and I'm going to turn your light on. If we vote down 5A, but we vote in support of 5B, that then, as they stand, is a tax increase of 11.9%.
Correct. I would change one thing you said, though, Chair Casper, and that is that you don't have to take any action on 5A.
Okay.
It's a placeholder item, and you can just let that go. And then 5B would represent the increase of 11.9%.
Okay, and if we chose not to support it at 11.9 and reduce that number, we can't go above that because we set that as our maximum back in September. But if we chose to go below that, the impact on that would then be the difference between that number and what the board approved would have to come from a transfer from the general fund, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
And that would have to be reflected in Resolution 5A.
Okay, thank you. All right, board members with questions, Member Sliga-Punko.
I'm going to read this resolution, Certified Tax Levy 2013 payable 2014. Be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District Number 709, St. Louis County, Minnesota, to hereby set the tax levy for 2013 payable 2014 at $32,363,566.93. I move Resolution B12-13-3149, dated December 17, 2013.
Could I get a second? Second. All right, let's move to discussion. Member Johnston.
Sure. I have the actual discussion on 5A. On that, I think we can do that. Is that what we're talking about?
The motion is 5B.
The motion is 5B, but you can discuss 5A.
Right, they're connected. If we go with 5, that was what the discussion I thought was.
Yes.
We were doing both of these and probably likely going to pass 5B. But I just have a question here. Say, for example, hypothetical, I'm not advocating this, but say we wanted to transfer money or pass something on 5A, which would transfer money from the general fund to the long-range facility plan. I think you answered that, I wasn't sure. Now, would that then decrease the tax certification?
Superintendent.
The action of transferring that, it's backwards. You'd be reducing B, and you would have to reflect that in A, keeping in mind that the money would be from building sales, which we don't have. So it would have to come from somewhere.
Okay, so the converse, and how would such a transfer affect our budget? If we did that, what would happen to our budget?
Mr. Hanson.
Well, we haven't, as you know, right after the, starting with the new board in January, we'll start our budget process for the fiscal year 15 year. And, you know, at this point in time, we don't have a budget for fiscal 15. This levy is a part of the revenue side of putting that budget together, so we would just have to deal with that as part of the budget process at that time, and we would have less revenue. The transfer would be essentially an expenditure or a transfer out, and we would have to deal with that as part of any deficit, or any balancing that we have to do.
So we would have less revenue than if we did that.
Technically, greater expenditures or transfers out. So,
Mr. Hanson, just keep your light on for a few minutes here. Thank you.
Sure.
All
Okay.
right.
Again, you're going back to now we're not the hypothetical. This is an important issue that I think we have to understand. Is last year we did transfer $3 million out. Year before we transferred 5. The year before that 3. Year before that 2. In addition to transferring money out for 2009B and 2010D as well. Or those are not transferred out, excuse me, we paid those with the general fund, pardon me. Total here this year looks like we've transferred or paid directly out of the general fund about $25 million. So if transferring this money out this year would be a negative impact on the general fund, all that transfer in the past that we've been doing also was a negative impact on the general fund. And again, people have tried to tell me that when I say that, that was incorrect. So again, my point here is that if we transferred it now, it would negatively impact the general fund. Obviously, in the past 5 years, transferring that money has been a negative impact on the general fund as well. Again, I'm not advocating we transfer money. Superintendent and I have talked about this a lot. My point is that because of this $25 million transfer over the last 4 years, it has been a major impact on our budget. That's why we've had repeated deficits time after time after time. And I think it's important to clarify this, and I'm glad to see the superintendent moving not to transfer that money out of the general fund is what I've been advocating for a long time. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Johnson.
I'm not done.
I'd like to come back to you in just a second. You've made your statement. I'm going to give Member Sligapunko an opportunity, and then we'll come back to you.
Thank you, Chair Casper. I just want to make the comment, if you look at Resolution 5D, which says placeholder, resolution authorizing the sale of properties related to the long-range facilities plan and all of that, that is there as a placeholder. We're not doing it. We're not even going to address it. So I want to make the point that I've made a motion on resolution, the B1, B12, 13, 31, 48, and it was seconded, and that's what we're talking about. And so I think we should just talk about that and move to vote on that.
Well, they are connected.
Right, but it's a placeholder just like the D is.
Yes.
And so I would like to move on, call the question, and vote on this.
The question's been called. Is there a second?
Mr. Chair, I'm going to call a point of order.
Okay.
You are calling a question on B?
Yes. I'm not calling.
This is certification. We're not even discussing. We're going to have no discussion on the tax certification, absolutely none, because you don't want me to speak about 5A. And you, as a board, is going to totally cut off discussion on the tax certificate, that this is supposed to be what this meeting is about, truth and taxation. We're going to have no discussion on it? That would be shameful if you, as a board, would do this.
The question has been called, and there has not been a second. There has been a second regarding the calling of the question for Resolution B12-13-3148. And we will move to a vote. All those in favor of Resolution B-12-13? Oh, I have to vote on calling. I'm sorry. Could I get a vote on calling the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? No. That carries 6-1.
Vote on 5B.
And now we will move to the vote on 5B Resolution B-12-13-3148. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And opposed? No. That carries 6-1. Board members, That concludes our
authorized here, this one.
Oh, I'm sorry. We have one more resolution, much less significant than the previous one. Back to you, Member Sligopunko.
Thank you. Authorized Student Activity Bank Account Signer. I move Resolution B12-13-3149 dated December 17th, 2013.
And a second. Seconded by Member Westholm. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries 7-0. Okay, board members, that concludes our business committee report. We are now moving on to other. It's that time, Member Wasson. Member Wasson.
I'd just like to take a few minutes to say a few thank yous. Summing up 10 years isn't easy.
Okay.
Thank you for the privilege of serving on this exemplary school board for the past 10 years. We don't serve for recognition or acclaim, but unselfishly for the betterment of our children, our teachers, staff, and city. I have met so many incredible people that give countless hours to attain excellence for our children and in our schools. 10 years ago, I stated ISD 709 was the best school system in our entire area. I still believe that, and we've gotten better. I have worked with 4 superintendents. Overall, each has contributed to the greatness of our district. Our current superintendent has great vision, passion for education, and hopes for our students and staff. It's my hope that the new board can move on in a positive direction and help Superintendent Gronseth's vision become reality. I also had the privilege of working with 13 different school board members. The thoughtful, respectful conversations and decisions we made will forever be ingrained in me. While I know the decision that took 20 years and many different boards to finally have the courage to approve the facilities plan, it will be an important piece of my 10-year term. It was positively the right thing for students, education, our schools, our city, and the future. My hope is my legacy will be that I always had our students and education as my priority, that the decisions I helped make have been and will continue to be best for all. Superintendent Gronseth, cabinet, staff, administrators, I admire your integrity and your professionalism. Thank you for all you do. It does not go unnoticed. Thank you for your support in bad times and good times. Thank you for your friendships. I also want to thank my family for their patience, support, and love. To the East Wing, thank you for your endless support, encouragement, and caring ways. And to friends and constituents, thank you for trusting me. I wish the new school board grace and fortitude to continue advocating for our children and our district. Again, I'm humbled and grateful, and thank you very much.
Member Cameron.
Well, I don't have a written out speech because I tend to get very emotional. I do want to thank the citizens of Duluth for putting their trust in me. It's been 16 years. I've enjoyed it through the good times and the bad times. I'm not really moved very much when I hear negative comments. I hear more positive comments than the negative, and I want to say to the new board members, you have to have a tough skin. Going into this, I was driven by passion, caring about the education of our students in this community. I still do care, and I will be watching. I am so proud that we stayed steady with the long-range facilities plan. Harry Welty is sitting out there in the public. He served with me, I think it was during my first term, during the first 4 years, when that board knew that we needed to close schools, and we did not have the courage to do so. So I am proud to be a part of a board that did so, knowing that we were moving into tough waters where we would be criticized. So I am proud to leave here with those new buildings, with the fact that I know that we are working to improve the academic achievement gap, and the fact that I have trust in Bill Gronseth. I've come to know you and trust you, and I believe that, I feel strongly that I'm leaving the district in good hands with you. I have enjoyed working with the administration and the staff. I respect you all. It was hard for me not to micromanage in those areas that I felt that I had more skills than you. I held back. And so I leave with much respect for all of you and all the hard work that you do. I'm not going to say that I'm going to miss this. Ann and I rode together coming here. I am honored to have served as long as I did. And again, I really appreciate the community members that supported me, including those that ran my campaign. I could not have done it without them. And all those people that put up signs and knocked on doors. I really appreciate all the hard work. And hang in there, school board members, and be tough.
So you didn't, Member Cameron, you didn't have that written down.
I did not.
That was very good.
Thank you very much.
I didn't write anything either. Ann and I had talked about this. We've spent some time together the last couple of weeks visiting our schools and talking with our principals. And I've enjoyed that. And it was really, we called it our farewell tour. And Ann brought cookies to each of the principals and staff, and I got to hold the cookies and bring them into the school as part of the contribution. But it was very, very reassuring as we visited these schools and toured them, and a couple of the principals that we visited with were so proud to show us around the school. And these are in our last weeks as board members, and proud to show us what's being accomplished and what's going to be accomplished in our schools, and the cooperative effort that they're seeing and that we're seeing happening in our schools, and those principals recognizing that is leadership from above them that is guiding that, and that is through our superintendent and assistant superintendent and his cabinet, and their direction that is guiding this district to a better place. And I really felt, as we went from school to school and heard about those efforts that are being put in place and are being realized in our schools, that we are leaving at a better place. And we're part of that. And that's very reassuring to think about and to know that I was a small part of that we were a small part of that as board members. I'm encouraged by the new board members and their effort and ideas that they're going to bring, and fresh ideas and opportunities that may happen within our district through their guidance. Many of them have been involved in the community in different ways and through different efforts, but all of them bring something to the table and to the board that will surely be utilized. So I too want to congratulate them, and like Member Cameron, we'll be watching. Maybe farther away than Member Cameron is, but I will be watching with hopes that they continue and the district continues with some of the great things that have occurred here over the past decade. So I want to thank my fellow board members who have persevered with me the last year as board chair, as I have learned more about Robert's rules than I really ever needed to know or want to know. I want to thank each of them individually. Hopefully during my tenure as board chair, they felt that their voice was heard and everybody was equally respected. Whether I agreed with their position or not, I gave them that opportunity to speak. I also want to thank Superintendent Gronseth, who has supported me. So, all right, thank you.
You have to vote on this.
So, board members, we unfortunately forgot one resolution. So we're going to have to go back to special resolutions. And member Sligapunko, could you?
Resolutions.
We have a special resolution?
Yes, we do. So,
I think it's fitting. It's the new board going to the...
yes, it's the new board going to the training. So member Sligapunko, could you please read that for us?
Sure. Give her the button.
I'm sorry.
Okay, resolution, board member attendance at MSBA Leadership Conference and Phase 1-2 programs for new board members. Resolved that Independent School District 709, St. Louis County, Minnesota, pay costs incurred as per district policy for school board members to attend the Minnesota School Boards Association 93rd Leadership Conference in Minneapolis, Minnesota on January 16th and 17th, 2014 in the Phase 1 and 2 programs for new board members. Move resolution S12-13-3150 dated December 17th, 2013.
Could I get a second?
Second.
Seconded by member Westholm. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's move to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries 7-0. We have Student Representative T-Boat who would like to speak to the board, and then we'll get back to member Johnston.
I would just like to thank the board and the community for the, opportunity to serve in my own little way. It's been a tremendous honor to work with the board and on the board and be trusted by my peers for the opportunity to lead and represent them in such an important position. And I'd like to thank the board for all the work they do in regards to education, but especially for their commitment to student leadership. I feel like opportunities like these really do help develop the aspirations and another way to educate the students in the district, and it's certainly been eye-opening and a truly exciting, incredible opportunity for me to work with the board on the board as I have over the past year. So a sincere thank you to all board members and administration.
Thank you, both of you. It's been great having you here. Member Johnston, back to you.
Sure.
Post-meeting comments.
Sure. Then we have another section on the agenda here. And I guess I'd like to comment again that I guess I had my mic cut off one more time for the year. So thank you, Mr. Chair. I will end up with what I was going to say on that was, again, just pointing out to people that should know, 11 years we've had a 280% tax increase. 280. If you take away the 1.9, which people wanted, there we still had a 260% tax increase. After our contractors, which everybody approved, promised us this would be done tax neutral and budget neutral. And thank you for allowing me to say that in the other section.
All right, thank you, Member Johnson. Member Cameron.
Oh, this goes into what Representative Tebow just said. You know, when I first came on the board, there were no student representatives, but we had chairs for student representatives. So to those new board members, I'm hoping that you continue to have student reps. I too strongly believe that it's very important to have their voices represented here.
Thank you, Member Cameron. Caitlin.
Hi. Well, everything Eric said too, and then I just hope next year that there will be 2 student representatives that can come in our place and have the same experience that I did, because I don't think I've ever learned so much.
Great. Thank you. All right, board members, with no further lights on, we are adjourned.
The last time, Tom.
The last time.
Last time.